for the live stream on YouTube, and this is for microphone.
Give me some warm water.
Warm water?
Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Hare. Voice is busted. No, Bhakti covered that yesterday. Bhakti covered that yesterday.
Let's try.
It's 18 today.
Should I rewrite the board?
Isn't it?
Yeah, he covered it this yesterday.
Covered it?
Yeah.
So it's written 17 here. I'll just, anyone has it? Or should I just read it?
You got on the phone.
Yeah, many have the phone.
Okay. Blessed with modern technologies. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So today we're reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 33, Activities of Kapila, text number 18.
18.
Turn it around. So, yeah, turn this around. So nobody gets confused. Take it away. It's a wrong version. Griha Udyanam Kusumitai Ramyam Bahu Amaradrumai Kujat Vihanga Mitunam Gayat Mata Madhuratam Grihodanam Kusumitai Grihodainam Kusumitai Ramyam Bhava Maradrumai Ramyam Bhava Maradrumai Pujat Vihanga Mitunam Gayan Mata Madhuratam Grihodanam Kusumitai Ramyam Bhava Maradrumai Pujat Vihanga Mitunam Gayan Mata Madhuratam
Grihodanam Kusumitai Ramyam Bhava Maradrumai Kujadvihanga Mitunam Gayan Mata Madhuratam Grihodyanam Kushumitai Ramyam Baba Maradrumai Kujadvihanga Mitunam Gayan Mata Madhuratam Grihodyanam Kusumitai Ramyam Baba Maradrumai Kujadvihanga Mitunam Gayan Mata Madhuratam Grihodyanam Kusumitai Ramyam Baba Maradrumai Kujadvihanga Mitunam Gayan Mata Madhuratam Grihudyanam
the household garden.
The household garden
Kusumitai with flowers and fruits.
with flowers and fruits.
Ramyam beautiful.
Beautiful.
Bahu Amaradrumai
Bahu Amaradumai
with many celestial trees.
with many celestial trees.
Kujat
Singing
Vihanga
birds
of
birds.
Mitunam with pears.
Gaya
Humming. Mata intoxicated. Madhuratam with bees. Translation. The compound of the main household was surrounded by beautiful gardens with sweet, fragrant flowers and many trees which produced fresh fruits and were tall and beautiful. The attraction of such gardens was that singing birds would sit on the trees, and their chanting voices, as well as the humming sound of the bees, made the whole atmosphere as pleasing as possible. No, but I read the next one. Yatra pravistam atmanam vibhudanuchara jagu vabhyam utpala gandinyam kadameno paladitam. When Devahudi would enter that lovely garden to take a bath in the pond filled with lotus flowers, the associates of the denizens of heaven, the Gandharva, would sing about Kadama's glorious household life. Her great husband, Kadama, gave her all protection at all times. Purport by Ciranjiva Prabhupada. The ideal husband and wife relationship is very nicely described in this statement. Kadama Muni gave Devahudi all sorts of comforts in his duty as a husband, but he was not at all attached to his wife. As soon as his son Kapila Dev was grown up, Kadama at once left all family connection. Similarly, Devahudi was the daughter of a great king, Swami Manu, and was qualified and beautiful, but she was completely dependent on the protection of her husband. According to Manu, women, the fair sex, should not have independence at any stage of life. In childhood, a woman must be under the protection of the parents. In youth, she must be under the protection of the husband. And in old age, she must be under the protection of the grown children. Devahudi demonstrated all these statements of the Manu Samhita in her life. As a child, she was dependent on her father. Later, she was dependent on her husband, in spite of her opulence, and she was later on dependent on her son, Kapila Dev. Om Magyana Timnandasya Tanandana Slakaya Shaksumritam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasapare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namne. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivasesa Sunyavadi Prasachandi Shikana. I'm going to get into trouble with this verse. Well, here Prabhupada began with the purport. This is ideal husband and wife relationship. And very often when we describe about qualities or talk about qualities described in the scriptures, about man, about woman, about relationship, even Varnashram, it is often misunderstood in the context of modern times. And I remember in the early days, these kind of verses would fire up the brahmacharis. The men will all get fired up. And other instances where we can put the women down. Because due to immaturity of understanding, often this concept of women being fairer sex and statements taken from the scriptures and even from Prabhupada is often being misused and misdirected. It's very important to understand where all this is coming from and the culture where it is coming from. For example, there's a statement by Prabhupada where he also said, quoting a scientist, where the woman's brain weighs half of the man. And some devotees will take it as an excuse to put down the women, that they're less intelligent. If we look at the context when all this was given during the Vedic time, there may be some truth in it in the sense of the quality of the people who live in those times. Right? Men, they were more disciplined, they were well-trained. So because of the discipline and control of senses and mind, all that, so the intelligence would be more sharp. And the whole culture, Vedic culture is geared towards self-realization. Through the following of the Varnashram. These are all very nicely followed. The Varnashram. The Brahmanas will act as Brahmanas, Kshatriya act as Kshatriya, Vaishyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. So all these divisions of labor according to the nature of the person is very nicely followed. That was described in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna said that we all act according to nature. So in that context, everyone has a different role to play in society. And when that role is nicely followed, then you have peace at home and also in society in general. We see from Bhagavad Gita in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna was putting up all these doubts about fighting. What were some of the reasons why he was refusing to fight? One thing was that, how can I fight against my teachers, my grandfather, whom I'm supposed to respect? Another reason he gave was that if all these men were killed, then the women would be left unprotected and they would be misled. And that will lead to Varnashankara, an unwanted population. And we see that, true or not true, but many years ago I heard about this. This women's liberation was one of the creation by the communists. I don't know if it's true or not, but if you look at it, it makes a bit of sense because all the men were sent out to be soldiers, so they need the women to be out there to work in the factories. So they said, yes, women's liberation, you're all liberated, you can all go to work and support the whole industry. But other than that, you can see also how everyone is being told, yeah, you should be independent, go and work. And then what happened? The children are neglected. And even nowadays, sometimes when I go and see clients, and I'm not talking about just Asian clients, but sometimes Westerners, they still have maintained, I have this idea that what's the use of having children if I'm not at home to take care of them? So they're willing to make the sacrifice and quit the job. And they're planning out, they're prepared that, okay, our income is going to drop significantly when we're going to have a child. So my wife will stay home, at least for some years until the child is old enough to go to school or something. Why? Their argument is, why do I have a kid? I'm going to have someone else take care of it, take care of the child. I go and work and pay someone to take care of the child. Don't make sense. So they still have some understanding towards this. But as Arjuna said, if women are not protected, then they tend to be misled. Now, why this kind of statement meets so much resistance nowadays? Because if you think of it in the modern context, when you talk about women being less intelligent, you look at the modern society, the present time, it doesn't make sense at all. Because you see, many women are more qualified than the men. And that is because men has degraded so much in the last few hundred years over time. They're not following any culture, not following any spiritual practice. So their intelligence are bewildered because due to the attachment of sense gratification. So the quality of the men and their intelligence drops significantly down. So when you make that comparison nowadays, there's not much difference. In fact, some women are even more qualified in many ways. But again, when we talk about qualification and about being intelligent in different things, we also have to look at the role we play. What are we suited for? And that's why Krishna in Bhagavad Gita said that it's better to follow one's prescribed duties rather than to follow the prescribed of someone else, because following the path of someone else is dangerous. Even if one can perform it perfectly, it's dangerous. It's important to understand what prescribed duty and practice and follow that prescribed duties. Now, of course, in our society, sometimes we use the argument that, well, Vaishnavas, they are above Brahmanas. So, and we do the needful. And very often this doing the needful is very loosely banded around, especially in management, that just do whatever needs to be done, and just, sometimes it's like putting a square peg in a round hole, trying to fit one in. But the other way around? No. Either way is hard. I remember for many years, my service, we just moved from one service to another. Every 2 years, 1.5, 2 years, I moved from taken away and put in another service and put in some other service, manage this, manage that, manage. And often when you hear classes, we read from Prabhupada's book, we read about the importance of steadiness. And when you go to Mayapur and Parikrama, you hear about this Pujari, glorified, they've been Pujari for 30 years in some temple, 40 years, 50 years. He started when he was a teenager, now he's an old man, he's still there, Pujari. Now, steadiness. So one time I just asked, I said, and the class again was about steadiness, so I asked, you talk so much about steadiness in devotional service, you keep changing my service every few years. How can I remain steady? So then he said, your service is to be, what do you call that? What do you call someone who is a problem solver?
Conflict manager.
Crisis manager.
When there's some issue, some problem, then you send a fix it.
Conflict manager.
Yeah, not really conflict, but sometimes you have a new project that needs to be built up, then you just... So anyway.
Crisis manager?
Pardon?
Crisis manager?
Oh, that's a word. Anyway, for lack of better word, I need to come back. It's like problem solver.
Counselor, is it coordinator? Coordinator?
No. So he said, anyway, you are my problem solver. Wherever there's something needs to be done, something needs to be fixed, I send you that. That's your service. What's the problem? I don't know, okay. So it becomes a steady problem solver. And learn new skills each time. So become a jack of all trades and master of none. So anyway, I was just watching one YouTube about this headmaster in India. So he had one student, and all the teachers would complain about this student. He was not doing well at all in school, and he was just getting C's and D's and C's and D's. Over the years, he was just constantly getting C's and D's. So he was concerned, and he brought the student to his office, and so he said, and you can see that the student is trying his best, but just could not do well in school. So he said, can you go back and tell your parents that I'm going to be visiting your home, and I want to talk to them. So the time came and the student was very, very nervous because, oh, my principal is coming to the house to complain about me. So he came there, and he noticed that there were a lot of artwork on the wall and framed up. Nice artwork and decorated all over the house. And he said, who did that? He said, he did it. I think it was a she. She did it. Really, this is amazing what she can do. So then he realized that this is her skill. She's very, very good at all this artwork. So he said, okay, there's going to be a school function. I want you to bring all this artwork to the school and put a display to sell it. So she did that, put it out there, and everyone came, all the teachers and the students, they came. It's amazing. Artwork, they couldn't believe that she produced all of that. And immediately the attitude of the students and the teacher changed to it. They used to ridicule her, that she's stupid, she's lazy, and she's just good for nothing, and so on and so forth. And that really pushed her down in self-confidence and all that. But when they finally recognized that she's very skillful in art, they start telling her how good she is, and immediately her confidence. And the teachers start to change their focus. Instead of focusing on the academy, they direct them towards art. So many years later, the principal was still there, and the secretary said, someone came to see you. And said, all right, no appointment. And she came and said, do you recognize me? No, I don't recognize. She said, I'm so and so, and I'm now the Deputy Minister of Development. She has been gone to scholarship, and moving up because of her skill, been accepted in some of the top art schools in the world, and moving up and became a Deputy Minister. So, and that goes to say that we have to understand and recognize who we are and what we are, what the best role we can play. Because ultimately, the goal of our life is not to show our superiority by being a man or a woman. The goal of our life is to develop humility, not false ego of I'm a man, I'm better, or I'm a woman, I'm better than you, and so on, and try to be competitive in that way. But I'll go, and in fact, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, humility, pridelessness, these are some of the quality that Krishna described as someone who is in knowledge. And he put humility as on the top. The first, in fact, he used humility and pridelessness. He used both qualities, which are all very similar qualities, but he mentioned both. And ultimately, that's what it's all about, humility, accepting who we are and what we are most suited for. It's no point that if we are suited quality and then fighting against it that I want to be a Brahmana. We will not be peaceful. We will be disturbed all the time, trying to be something or someone we are not. So in that sense, when we look at this context about how the life of Devahuti is a highly qualified woman, not just highly qualified woman, but also highly qualified devotee. She's glorified throughout the Vedic scriptures as the wife, a glorious wife of our daughter of Manu, the glorious wife Kadama Muni and the glorious mother of Kapila Devi. Because she executed her duties according to each of these roles perfectly. When she was a daughter of Swami, she performed function as a daughter under the protection of Swami. Then when she was married to Kadama Muni, she performed. Although she was a princess, used to all kinds of opulences and been served by maid servants. But because Kadama Muni was living just in an ashram, a simple brahmana, she lived according to this lifestyle. So it was only later on Kadama Muni provided all these facilities. And again, she was the mother of Kapila Dev. But in this case, of course, Kapila Dev is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and she took instruction. And again, she's a mother taking instruction from the son. Again, there's no false ego involved. She recognized and understand who Kapila Dev is, and she was willing to take instruction from her son. So that's very, very glorious position. So if for example, if the man wants to exercise that superiority over the woman, they also have to act out the quality to be able to give protection. Why would a woman surrender to the man if the man is not able to give them full protection? Why would you surrender to anyone who can't give us protection? That's the illusion. Whether it's a woman surrender to a man, or we surrender to a guru, or surrender to anyone in particular. But there's a confusion of the modern society, that we're surrendering to people or surrendering to things that will can't protect us. And that was in the Bhagavatam, the second chapter of Bhagavatam, clearly described that we take shelter of the body, we take shelter of the mind, our so-called intellect, our bank balances, our wife or husband, our jobs, our wealth, so on and so forth, thinking that these valuable soldiers will give us protection. And we get confused because of that. And another very typical one in the old days, I hope it's not existing in present day. In the old days is that the husband in the society, the husband would demand that the wife will act like Sita. So being the temple president for many years, you get to come across these conflicts every now and then. So when this conflict presented to me, first thing I ask, if the husband bring up the problem, that the problem here is because my wife is not acting properly like Sita. Then I ask the husband, are you like acting like Ram? Do you have the quality of Ram? And are you acting according to religious principle like Ram, that you demand your wife to be like Sita? You know? So if we are not acting properly ourselves, how can we demand someone else to act properly? It's a two-way traffic. So if this stands true also, only if the men are also acting according to religious principle to give protection. Otherwise, because of the degradation of men and the degradation of the Brahmanical culture, we find everyone trying to act independently. Everyone trying to find their own way to survive the best possible. And because in the modern time, we are all mostly influenced by Western culture, we follow Western culture. Western culture previously, it was like that. It was long, but so far back, so long time ago, that it practically don't exist anymore. So that is sometimes the issue we face when we read from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, we read from instances like that. And devotees are still very much influenced by Western culture, growing up in Western and society. They have issue with statements like that. And they start having doubts, and they start arguing against it. It doesn't make sense at all. So we have to understand things not in the context of present time, but in the context of Vedic. Because what is being described here is a Vedic culture, it's a perfect Vedic culture, how it should be. Then it's up to us how to apply this Vedic culture or this understanding according to our present environment. So, but the underlying principle of all that, as I said earlier, is humility. We have to have the humility to understand our position and to accept that the Vedic scripture is perfect in all ways because it's spoken by perfect personalities and given by the Supreme Personality Godhead. There cannot be any mistakes in it. As long as we think there's a mistake in it, our Krishna consciousness is gone. It's sooner or later it's gone. There cannot be any doubt in what is said in the scripture. Then it's required humility to accept that I don't see how it relates in present time. But who said that you have to relate to present time? You just accept it as it is and see how you can apply the principles. And that's where sometimes changes come in. Last week, in the question and answer, there was some discussion about changes by new leaders, young leaders, not well trained, and decide to implement things into this management society. Like in India, they started becoming more and more Hinduized. Then in the West, we try to influence too much Western influence in it. So we have to be very, very careful. Although Prabhupada used a principle, utility is a principle, time, place, and circumstances, we still have to be very, very careful when we try to change things. And Prabhupada said that one of the disease of Western society is that we're always changing, always like to change. Always want to change everything. If something is working perfectly well, why do you want to change? We can adapt, yes, but we have to be very careful about changing. And especially the principles given by us, by Srila Prabhupada, the principle given in the scripture, that is Mount Meru. It's immovable. There's no compromise on that. And that is actually is one of the guidelines that I used throughout the years that has served me quite well. Is that holding on to the principle of Krishna consciousness cannot be changed. So when someone, when they talk about Krishna consciousness, I can tolerate that as long as it's not changing the philosophy, the principle, there may be some weakness in their practice. For me, that's acceptable. I can still deal with that person, work with that person, and maybe try to help. Because it's just a matter of weaknesses. We all have our weaknesses, and we all make mistakes. But if someone has been dishonest and try to change the teaching and change the principles, that is a no-no. So I make a distinction between the two about what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And very often what I find when devotees change things, principles, and put up courses, and they become very, shall I say, very vocal about those courses, you look at their lifestyle, they're not really practicing Krishna conscious at all, or much. They're not following sadhana, they're not chanting, they're not following principles, but they take up a course and become, shall I say, try to make themselves very important. Because generally, if devotees are fully practicing Krishna consciousness, they don't have time for this. Just like last year, there was some discussion about something. I don't want to get into that, so I don't mention what it is. On Facebook with some devotees in Europe, in Denmark. So I just put in my a statement there, my 2 paisa worth of opinion. And one of the devotees said, oh, finally someone who's saying something sober and mature. Then those devotees are vocal and against, they say, oh, Ciranjiva Prabhu, it's so nice that you are taking part in this discussion. And I already saw the red light. I said, no. So I wrote there, I said, I'm not taking part in any discussion. I have no time to take part in this kind of discussion. If I have any spare time at all, I would rather spend it on studying Prabhupada's books and chanting and doing some service. Where do you find time to just spend hours and hours doing all this discussion back and forth and back and forth? And I know these devotees very well. They're not they're not practicing Krishna consciousness. But they take up some vocal things. So again, where's the humility? They start thinking that they are so advanced, they're so knowledgeable, they're so intelligent, they start arguing about this thing and that thing. So if we are humble, just follow. Be humble and admit who we are. Yes, this is my station, this is who I am, this is my level of Krishna consciousness. Let me practice my Krishna consciousness to continue my level and try to make some advancement that way. And not get too much into who is who and what is what and so on. Because very often those are distractions. It distracts us from the real issue of serving Krishna, serving the spiritual master, and going back home back to God. That's our main purpose, that's our main goal. Not issues. Yeah, especially if it doesn't concern us. Why do we waste our time on all those issues? So whether we're going to accept this or not, yes, women, when they're young, they should be protected. And in terms of the psychology, I have a bit of experience with that. Many years back, I used to be a Sankirtan leader for the women Sankirtan back in Sweden. And I was dealing with all the Madhajis on a regular basis. One of the things that I discovered was that when these Madhajis, when they have a very stable situation, when they have a very stable environment, and they feel that they're being cared for and in some way like protected, their needs are taken care of, they're very, very peaceful. And they're able to do their service really well, and they excel in their service. They'll go out and distribute books and they'll do very well. But as soon as the situation is a bit unstable, if you're unsure of something, immediately the mind just goes like haywire. It's like the wire just overlapping. And it's very hard for them to handle it. Is it true? Yes or no? Am I wrong? The Mataji say yes, she's very experienced. Yeah. And I observed this phenomenon over and over again, many times. And I came to yes. So but I really go out of my way to really make sure that everything is taken care of for them. Their needs are taken care of. They get proper clothing, they get proper warm clothing, they get nice prasadam, they get nice place to stay, the wains are proper, not some old wain that is just breaking down, and they do very well. Very often even doing better than the man. So that is one instances of that actually explain the psychology. We are not saying they need protection because we want to put them down. But we just understand nature, provide them with the facility, they feel protected, and they will be able to serve very well. So it's at the same time, just like if the daughter is taken care of by the husband, protected very nicely, they will excel in whatever quality they have. Then when they're married, they feel protected by the husband, they feel loved by the husband, they feel cared by the husband. Then the wife also blossoms as in her wifely duties. Right? Yeah. So and so on, and then in this case, Kadamuni, because he's an enlightened soul, when the son grew up, he left home. He took sannyas, and they're under the care of the son. But nowadays, where do you find this kind of setup? Very often, the husband and wife have to both work to survive, especially living in the West. Just on one salary, sometimes it's really tough. So wife also has to work to just keep things up. And the children are left on their own. Very often, they come home from school, nobody's there. And they live by themselves. So this system is very, very scientific. When it's properly followed, it's perfect. And the same thing with Varnashram. Because of the caste system in India, especially when Westerners, even Indians themselves, when they hear about caste system, it's a very, very unfair system, and it's true. Because they're using the four Varna, but they're not following the principle of it, which is Krishna said according to quality. Janma karma, tamidivyam. According to, it's not Janma karma. Guna karma. So according to the quality in your work, not according to Janma karma. Because I use the argument, so I just take it in the head. So guna karma, according to the quality in the work, not according to birth, but in India it's based on birth. If you're born one low class, you're untouchable, you know. And so when someone who is not well versed in this and don't have proper understanding of this, it's no, don't even talk about it. This is a very unfair system. So sometimes when we talk about Varnashram, it's very hard to present Varnashram to the open public. You have to first explain what it is, how it's supposed to work, then how it is perfect for society, because it exists in every society. So same thing when you talk about this kind of situation about how women with fair sex, they need to be protected every stage of their life. You have to first qualify it. You have to first explain the intelligence behind it, the principle behind it. Then maybe some of them will be able to accept it in the modern time. But even for devotees, it's hard to accept what to say of normal people. I have discussion with this with different devotees. They have a hard time accepting this because they just cannot get away from their own perception of things. So if we base our Krishna conscious understanding based on our perception, we're not going to get far. We're not going to go far. Because we have limited perception. We make mistakes. When delusion, the four mistakes that we make. So Krishna consciousness is not based on our own perception. There's someone was asking this question a while back. Our mind keeps telling us. You never find in the scripture there's mother shakshu. It's shastra shakshu. We see through the eyes of the scripture. We don't see things according to our own perception of things. Yes, we do act according to our perception of things, but our perception is to be based and guided by Guru Sadhu Shastra. That is our guiding line. So if the Guru say like this, like this, like this, Shastra say like this, like this, like this, like this, it has to be like this. If I cannot understand why it's like this, it's due to our own limitation. It's not because there's something wrong with the scripture. It's our own limitation. So now I have to try to understand what is the meaning behind it. What's the principle? We all have this experience. If we've been around for some years, we all have this experience. So many things we read in scriptures, so many things we hear in classes, doesn't make sense to us. Isn't it? But we accept it based on faith. And as time progresses, as we get more and more purified, it suddenly just hit us. Ah, now I understand why it's like this. Now I understand why it's like that. Isn't it? You all have the experience? No? Yes? So, same thing, apply the same principle towards this. In a perfect society, as described here, because we are talking about ideal, Prabhupada said the ideal husband and wife relationship. The ideal example of Devahuti, that's ideal. Don't try to bring our messed up upbringing, messed up society and try to apply that into an ideal situation. It should be the other way around. Otherwise we'll never make progress. Or our progress will be very, very slow if it's only based on our perception of things. Now this doesn't make sense to me, I can accept this. This doesn't make sense, I don't accept it. Then we start cutting off verses from Bhagavad Gita. This doesn't make sense, and there will be, instead of the, how many, 600 or so verses, they're going to be, Seven? Yeah, okay. Then there will be left with maybe 10, 20 verses left. Then, oh, I like this one. This one fit me very well, I accept this one. This one, nah, it's too complicated. Or this one doesn't make sense, and this one is, no, it's too inconvenient. And, okay, this one I like. And Prabhupada say that, don't just accept it part of it, you have to accept it in total. You have to accept everything in total. And you all come back to humility. Do we have the humility to accept the fact that I'm not so intelligent? My perception is not perfect. Therefore, I have to see through the eyes of Guru, Sadhu, Sastra. And that should be my perception. There's even Swami a statement. When we stand on the shoulder of giants, we can see very far. Isn't it? So when we stand on the shoulder of enlightened souls, we can see very far and very deep. Because they open up the window of the spiritual world for us. We have no access to it. They open up the windows of the spiritual world where we can get a peek into what it's like and how it's like. And in fact, just look at this, the opulence described here in the household life of Kadamba Muni in Devotee is mind-blowing. The opulence described here is so different than the opulence that we talk about people who are rich nowadays. Their kind of opulence and the kind of opulence described in the Bhagavatam is very different. Here everything is just natural. All pure, natural, benches, ivory, laces, flowers, birds chirping, humming bees, clear water lakes, all these. These are real opulence, natural opulences. Very hard to find places like that. Actually, people still appreciate opulences like that. When they put a picture of holidays, very often they put about nature, pristine nature, mountains and lakes, valleys, beautiful flowers, and very attractive. Those kind of pictures they put up. So I think I'll just end here. Someone has anything to add? No question? Yes, Prabhu.
Something to add. I'd like to brought up a point some time back about the possession of a man, of a woman to a man.
Maybe just, yeah.
It says in different scriptures that that the man is given possession of the woman.
Man is that?
Is given possession of the woman, but the purport is that if a person is given possession of something, then he looks after that thing. If a person is given possession of a car, it doesn't mean that he thrashes the car and runs it into the ground. He actually maintains the car and makes sure that it's tuned and running well. It's a point, that man has been given possession of the woman, but it doesn't mean that he exploits that position. He actually makes sure that possession is responsibly looked after, cared for, maintained to the highest degree.
So Gyalasa Prabhu make a point that if a woman is given, the man is given possession of a woman, then when you're given possession of something, you take good care of it. Just like you were given possession of a car, you take good care of the car and you maintain the car very well and pristine and make sure it runs well. So you use the same someone when given possession, but that's how it's like. But again, the modern women don't like being given possession. I'm not possessed, but actually it's value. That you've been given possession, actually you've been valued. There's nothing really wrong with that. You see, one of the thing we face when we talk about different things like that, we have to always explain the meaning first. We qualify. For example, when we talk about false ego, or when we talk about ego, in a modern context, what do you mean by ego? It means you're very proud, you're very arrogant, but that's not the meaning of ego. Ego means identity. So sometimes you have to explain the meaning of the word before you go into the philosophical point of it. So what it means is we just have to be very careful when we present things like that. I heard someone told me a while back there was a Mataji in a Sunday class talk about women being unintelligent, and it was not very well received. And so when we present these things, especially in public, even in an assembly of devotees, you have to explain it properly, in a full context behind it, which we were not very good at doing in the early days. Because also due to our immaturity, we tend to put people down. That was a mistake we made. Any other? Mataji, want to add something to this? How do you feel about this? The new generation, what do you feel about this? Yeah.
I think it's quite respectable what you said.
You want to say something? No?
I think it's quite good what you said.
Pardon?
I think the way you explained it is quite good. It's quite respectable, like it has its points and everything. So, yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Actually, in Vedic culture, the women are held in great high extent. That's why you address women's mother, Mataji. His mother is supposed to be respected. And in the Prabhupada Lilamrita, Prabhupada was saying that sometimes they stay back late in school, in the college, and then this lady, this cleaner lady, wanted to come into the room to clean, but because she saw some man there, she would stay out. She would not come in. And out of respect for this lady, now considered as a cleaner, it's considered to be low class, right? But Prabhupada and his friends, they will leave the room to allow this lady to come in to clean. Because she was being very chaste, she attracted the respect of the students. Out of respect for her, they leave the room so that she can come in and clean. But when we try to artificially fight, it's not a fair fight. It's just like trying to have a competition between art students and science students. Who is better? Well, it depends on the subject matter. Who is going to be better? So it's not going to be a fair fight. So men have their quality, women have their quality. Men have the roles, women have the role. They're not meant to compete. They're meant to complement. Yes, please.
The point that you made about the women now in today's society becoming the leaders of society, it's not because the women are at fault, it's the men that are at fault. It's a very good point that men actually should be leaders of society, but they belittle themselves to such a point of degradation that it just goes to show how men have become degraded.
Yeah. So there's no choice. The women have to take up the role. Because the men are not doing what they're supposed to do.
We're putting a woman in front of us.
Yeah.
Whereupon that's not a natural position for a woman, it's actually behind the man, but what woman nowadays can stand behind a man with pride?
Yeah.
They've got to come out front and lead the community because there's no one to lead.
Mm-hmm. Women are good at nurturing. There's special quality in nurturing. So because of that this natural like motherly quality, they're good at nurturing others and guiding. So they are very well suited for certain kind of roles.
When you speak about culture, what is happening right now? It will be culture after 50 years. You know, people will say, oh, that was a culture in 2017 or
That's because of what?
So what is happening when you speak about culture? What is happening right now? This is gonna be culture for the future generation. They're gonna say in 2090 that was happening, that was the culture, right? So I've read in Indian history there were some women warriors who had who had wars and who participated in wars and all. So how does it work? Like how do you explain yourself? Like the culture I see right now, maybe like 100 years ago or 200 years ago, that was the culture that we got referred. So how does it work? Like culture is changing constantly.
What you give about women being warrior? Yeah, that you see in the case of Ram's father, Kaikeyi, why he was obliged to her, because she saved him from a battlefield. He was hurt, she saved him from a battlefield, and he promised her, and she said, I'll ask for it later. And later she asked that he ban Ram. So, yes, time changed, but because we're in Kali Yuga, tendency of the change will be degrading. As Kali Yuga progresses, things will just degrade over time. So, but the purpose of the Krishna conscious movement is to put a stop to the degradation of Kali Yuga and bring in the golden age within this Kali Yuga. So I would say not every aspect of the Vedic culture will be able to be implemented, but the important things should be there. And there will probably be also some adaptation of it, taking the essence of the Vedic culture and apply it in a modern context. Prabhupada was very good at that. I mean, some of the things he did would be traditionally very un-Hindu. And that's why when he started giving Brahma initiation to Westerners and all that, and to women, unheard of. So he's applying the principle in a modern context, according to the requirement, without changing things, the essence of it. So there were a lot of opposition from Hindu groups, even among his god brothers. Yes.
Hare Krishna Guru, very nice class. Thank you for such a wonderful lecture. I have one question, Prabhu. Usually when the devotee evolves in his devotional life, he becomes very surrendered to the Lord, and he believes everything is happening because of the will of the Lord, and under humility, and also he feels detached to everyone else because his attachment towards the Lord grows. So in that state of affairs and his mental state, for him to give protection becomes very difficult, because he himself feels that he is under the protection of the Lord and everything is happening with the will of the Lord. And usually, like Prabhuji gave an example, that when we have a car, we need to protect it, right? But we also see that people who are very attached, they take care of their car very nicely. You know, they will clean the car every day because they want the car to look bright and shiny. But over a period of time, when they get detached to the car, they will feel that, okay, the car can run itself, right? And because they are looking for a higher goal, for the higher aim. They're wanting to reach to a destination, right? Other things become noise in their life. So I'm asking from a perspective of a devotee who is matured in his, from his heart, in terms of attached to the Lord, because Prabhupada also said that when you are married, you should always show up, you should always be attached to Krishna, but show to your wife that you're attached to her. So it's a extramarital affair, you know, that's what he talks about. So when you are in that state, I mean, I'm not in that state, I'm just trying to comprehend what you stated in this regard. So if you can throw some light.
Good question. Basically, probably you're asking that when the devotee is surrendered to Krishna and feeling that Krishna will provide everything, he will tend to neglect material duties and possession. Basically, that's the question, right? Yeah. We have to understand what is spiritual and what is material. The differentiation between matter and spirit, what is matter and what is spirit, is our consciousness. Everything is spiritual. It's all, ultimately, it's just what Krishna's energy. But it's manifesting material and spiritual. So, when you talk about this microphone, is it matter or spirit? It's made of material elements. But because it's been used to broadcast Krishna's katha, it has become spiritualized. We can use it. We can be detached from it too, but that will limit the scope of our preaching. So when we surrender to Krishna, that again, like you did mention, is maturity. In the beginning stage, when we try to surrender to Krishna and become detached, the pendulum tend to go to one extreme. That we got to tend, and everything else is Maya. It's Maya, that's Maya, everything is Maya. But as we mature, as our Krishna consciousness be more stabilized, our foundation has taken roots somewhat, we begin to relate, to see things how they are related to Krishna and using Krishna's service. So mentality you're describing is that if someone surrenders to Krishna, depending on Krishna, and lose interest in taking care of the household affairs, and because he see those household affairs as Maya, he don't see the wife as a servant of Krishna. He doesn't see the children as servant of Krishna. So we have to see them also. They are all eternally part and parcel of Krishna, not so much as meant for our enjoyment, but meant for the enjoyment of Krishna. So, as a husband or father, you want to engage and direct them also in Krishna's service. Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Bhishmadev, he gave perfect answer in his instruction to Maharishi Yudhishthira about how duties of how grihastha. He used that developing detachment through attachment. So when you are a householder, there have to be certain level of attachment, because without attachment you won't care for something. So our attachment is to Krishna, yes, but there is certain attachment also to the wife and children and your possession. Otherwise, like you say, you won't take care of it. But how you utilize that attachment in dovetailing it to Krishna, that's the art. You have to learn to dovetail things. Prabhupada uses the word dovetail a lot. It's not normally used in the English language in that way, but Prabhupada uses it that way. Perfect. Dovetailing. Seeing things at all. And Rupa Goswami also said this, but just by artificial renouncing things that can be used in Krishna service, this is artificial renunciation or immature renunciation. Whereas maturity means you see how everything is connected to Krishna. And Prabhupada, one time is some god brother asked him if he can support them with some funding. And Prabhupada used their argument against him, back on them. And said, no, this Lakshmi we collected are all contaminated by unqualified people. So I don't want to contaminate you with this Lakshmi. Because they're all collected by unqualified yamanas, lectures, so they touch it, so it's impure. So Prabhupada very good in utilizing everything. But was he attached to it? No. There's so many beautiful temples everywhere. Everywhere you go. You just come stay a few days, come and move and so on, and move on. Unattached to it. But make sure that they're well taken care of? Yes. They're well maintained? Yes. So that is what, but you need to be stabilized. Our connection with Krishna is strong. The stronger our connection with Krishna, the more we will be able to reach out and engage. If our connection is not strong, our foundation is not strong, when we try to engage, we get pulled in the other direction instead. Does that make sense? No. Yes, Prabhu.
Sorry. Just thinking about that, the philosophy of the impersonalists. Prabhupada was saying that we worship the deity, and we put our love and care on the deity, but then when we become realized, then we just throw them out. Yeah. So it angers me when I hear, sometimes when grihastas think that they love their wife and love their family, and then they can just come to a point of realization of advancement, and then just toss them out like the deity into the.
Yeah.
So this is impersonalism.
Impersonation. Prabhupada demonstrated that once very graphically. He was in Mayapur by the Ganges. So as he was going up a slight slope, Bhavananda held out the hand to help him up. And as soon as Prabhupada got up, he just threw his hand away. I said, that's the Mayavadi philosophy. You utilize Krishna, and then when you realize you don't need Krishna anymore. Okay, thank you very much. I think I got through this. Very Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.